Today, we are going to discuss the categories of employment and the benefits after retirement. The Labor Code and Philippine jurisprudence generally recognize the following categories of employment. 1. Regular employment. Regular employees are those who perform activities which are usually necessary or desirable in the usual business or trade of the employer. By default, any employee not otherwise classified by law or contract falls under regular status. Regular employees enjoy security of tenure, meaning they cannot be terminated except for just or authorized causes, as enumerated under the Labor Code. Termination of a regular employee without just or authorized cause renders the employer liable for reinstatement and full back wages. If reinstatement is not viable, separation pay may be awarded. Termination for authorized causes, e.g., redundancy, retrenchment, typically necessitates payment of separation pay and compliance with procedural due process requirements. 2. Project employment. Project employees are engaged for a specific project or undertaking, the completion or termination of which has been determined at the time of their engagement. Their tenure is coterminous with the project's duration. A written contract specifying the project's scope and duration and the nature of the work as distinct from the employer's regular operations. Project employees do not become regular by mere length of service if their services are tied to the completion of a project. Once the project ends, their employment ends without the obligation of separation pay, unless stipulated by company policy, contract, or collective bargaining agreement. However, if the employee is continuously rehired for successive projects and their work becomes integral to the company's business, they may be deemed regular. 3. Seasonal employment. Seasonal employees work for an employer whose business, by its nature, is limited to a particular season or period of the year. The employees are hired during the peak season and laid off at season's end. Seasonal employees, if repeatedly and regularly engaged over multiple seasons, become regular seasonal employees. They are considered in off-season layoff status without terminating their employment relationship. During off-seasons, no separation pay is generally due, since the employment relationship is not actually severed but merely suspended. Illegal dismissal issues may arise if the employer refuses to rehire a seasoned seasonal employee without justifiable reason. Separation pay might be considered if the employer no longer re-engages them at season's start without lawful cause. 4. Casual employment. Casual employees are engaged to perform work that is neither usually necessary nor desirable to the employer's main business. By default, they have less security of tenure compared to regular employees. If a casual employee has rendered at least 1 year of service, whether continuous or broken, performing activities necessary or desirable to the employer's business, they become a regular employee by operation of law. Before conversion to regular status, casual employees may be terminated as per their contract or at will, provided termination is made in good faith and not contrary to law. Once converted to regular, the usual rules on just or authorized causes of dismissal apply. 5. Fixed term or contractual employment. Not explicitly defined in the Labor Code, but recognized in jurisprudence, fixed-term employment involves an agreement to engage an employee for a definite period. Valid only if not intended to circumvent security of tenure laws. Factors considered include the duties to be performed, the nature of the job, and the bona fide intent to fix the term. Employment ends by expiration of the term without the need for cause or separation pay, unless otherwise agreed upon. The employer's good faith and the absence of any scheme to defeat the employee's security of tenure are crucial. Courts frown upon repeated fixed-term contracts that effectively deny the employee the right to become regular. 6. Probationary employment. A probationary employee is hired on a trial basis to determine their fitness and qualifications for regular employment. The period shall not exceed 6 months from the date the employee started working, unless a longer period is required by an apprenticeship agreement or covered by a specific exemption. The employer must communicate the reasonable standards to the probationary employee at the start of employment. If the employee fails to meet these standards, the employer may terminate the probationary employment without incurring liability for illegal dismissal, provided procedural requirements are observed. If the employee is allowed to work beyond the probationary period without express notice of termination or extension, they acquire regular status. If prematurely terminated without valid grounds or proper due process, the probationary employee may seek reinstatement or payment of the remainder of the probationary period's contract or damages. 7. Apprentices, learners, and interns. Apprentices and learners are engaged under special training arrangements, governed by the Labor Code and DOL regulations. Interns may be engaged under student trainee programs subject to school-industry linkages, generally limited to the training period's duration or completion of the apprenticeship program. Rights and benefits depend on compliance with statutory requirements. At the end of the apprenticeship or learning period, the employer may hire the apprentice as a regular employee. If the employer unjustly refuses to do so despite the apprentice's successful completion of training, questions of bad faith and possible liabilities may arise depending on the governing agreements. For regular employees, lawful termination requires just or authorized cause and adherence to procedural due process. 1. Just causes: serious misconduct, willful disobedience, gross and habitual neglect of duties, fraud, breach of trust, commission of a crime against the employer or his representatives, and analogous causes. 2. Authorized causes: installation of labor-saving devices, redundancy, retrenchment, closure of business, and disease not curable within 6 months. Termination for authorized causes entitles the employee to separation pay. For non-regular employees, project, seasonal, casual, probationary, termination follows the logic of their employment arrangement. A key principle is that termination should not be used to circumvent the law on security of tenure. If termination is found unlawful, reinstatement and back wages are generally awarded. Where reinstatement is no longer feasible, separation pay in lieu of reinstatement is granted. On the other hand, some of the post-employment benefits and obligations are the following. 1. Separation pay: mandatory for authorized cause terminations of regular employees, and are nor generally required for expiration of fixed-term contracts or completion of projects, unless provided by contract or company policy. 2. Final pay and clearance: all employees, regardless of classification, are entitled to the prompt payment of final wages upon termination, including salary due, proportionate 13th month pay, unused leave credits, if convertible to cash, and other contractually or legally mandated benefits. 3. Retirement benefits: governed by the retirement pay law and company policies. Regular employees who reach retirement age as prescribed by law or CBA/company policy may be entitled to retirement benefits, while fixed-term and other non-regular employees may not enjoy the same privileges unless contractually stipulated. 4. Unemployment insurance or involuntary separation benefits, SSS-ECC. Social Security System, SSS, provides unemployment benefits to covered employees who are involuntarily separated. The rules and procedures for applying depend on SSS policies. This is distinct from severance or separation pay under the Labor Code. It is a form of post-employment financial relief from a social legislation perspective.